Hello.
Hello.
You see me okay?
Yes, I
All
see you.
right.
Okay. Hope you see me okay, and the rest also.
Yeah, I can see you just fine. And, great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. My name is Imtiaz. I'm one of the volunteers of India Game Developer Conference, which, as you know, that it's the largest game developer conference in India. And what we say it as, by the industry, for the industry event. What we mean by that is the event is organized by folks from the industry who are volunteering for this. This is a very non-profit event, and I think this is the only event in the gaming industry that has been driven by volunteers from the industry. I think maybe there are a few more, but in terms of scale, I think this is the largest. So we take a real pride in doing something like this. We have like over 40 volunteers across doing various things. Some of them are creating content or curating the content, and some of them are helping on the operations, sponsorship, and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for being part of this one. This is the second year of being online, but overall this is like 13th year. We have been successful in doing this, and this hopefully we're gonna do this next year on the ground. But before I start and introduce the speaker for today, I would like to quickly thank our sponsors, without which we could not achieve this. And we have a presenting sponsor, Unreal Engine. We have gold sponsors, Jungle Games, MPL, AWS, and Glance. And we have legacy sponsors, legacy silver sponsors like GameShun, Lakshya, and YesNome. And we have bronze sponsors, Quali and GameOn. And we have a track sponsor for hyper casual track, and that's Sunday Games. And we have Succeed Innovation Fund, which funds a lot of seed funding for companies who are looking for seed funding. So they are the IP Investor Publisher Connect sponsor. So that's where I would like to stop. And again, thank you so much, sponsors. And so we have Andre Pierce, who I'm sure you guys are. You guys have played a game called Carrom Pool, and it was actually on my. How can I say? It's one of the first games that I see on my panel here on my phone. So we have someone who actually heads that product, Andrew Piaz. He's director of product for especially for the Carrom game from Miniclip. So over to you, Andre, and I will go back to the backstage and see you towards the end of the presentation.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. So hello guys, as you guys already know, I'm André. I'm the director of product in Miniclip Portugal, where we make some of our games. Being one of them, the game that I'm going to speak today. And basically, I want to tell you guys a bit the story, how we came up with the idea of this game, and then some of the challenges that we had, and some of the decisions that we took. So basically, I'm going to start now screen sharing. This was 2018, and we were thinking, okay, what game should we do next? Back at this time, I think we had, at least in Portugal, 8-Ball Pool, which is a game that I'm sure many of you know, very big, the biggest game in Miniclip. We also had Soccer Stars, we had the Garayo, and we really wanted to make a new title. So at this point, we got together and we started thinking, okay, what can we do next? And we organized this in three pillars. Looking at the strengths and opportunities that we have. One of them is that looking at games like 8-Ball Pool or Soccer Stars, we have a very good physics engine and we have a very good experience in multiplayer. And this is something that really distinguishes us, Miniclip, because we have a lot of knowledge in this area. And we thought, okay, how can we leverage on this knowledge, both the physics and the experience in multiplayer? Another thing that we considered was, okay, let's look at our audience. We have a huge audience in India, and it's also a growing market. Currently, India is more than like 25-30% of our audience, and we know that it's growing. You have here some data that in 2020 the mobile market in India grew almost 50%. And another thing that we wanted to, and we always consider, is that the genre of sports is evergreen. And we already have this experience looking at it, ball pool or soccer stars, but we know that sports is something that it's not seasonal. It's something that exists today, and in 10 years, 20 years, it will still exist. Football, for example, it's something that in Europe is very famous, and you know there's always people that like football and have this passion. So this can also help us in terms of organic growth, because rather than trying to create something new, there is already this feeling on people on what is important, and sports is something that they love. And this traction is something that's going to stick to our audience. So we have these three things: great physics, experience in multiplayer, big user base in India. India is growing, sports, and we started thinking, okay, what should we do? What can we do with all of these things? And then we got to this carom. It's definitely it's a sport in a way, in the sense that it involves skill. It's unpredictable. It's very famous in India and some of the surrounding countries. And definitely it's the kind of sport that fits very well on our physics engine, because if you look at it, it's basically pieces on the board moving. So this is very similar to what we have on soccer stars and even on 8-ball pool. As a curiosity, just for you guys to know, first we started with 8-ball pool. Then from that physics engine, we created soccer stars. And what will happen here in carom is that we took up the engine of soccer stars, at least on the physics part, and adapted to make a carom game. So we had an idea, great. So we set up a team and we started thinking of what we wanted to do. And what I'm going to tell you guys now and show is a bit some of the decisions that we took during the process until we create carom. So the first thing that challenge that we had is, should we make it in landscape or portrait? And these are actually mock-ups of the initial art we had for, at least for the prototype of carom. And we did not know. Initially, landscape is something that we were a bit more used to work with. If you look at pool or soccer stars, they're in landscape. And this, even in technical terms, would make it a bit easier for us, because we could port some of the menus easier if they're in landscape. But on the other hand, we were seeing, and we still see, that many games are played in portrait. It's much easier when you pick up your phone. Your hand and the device is already on portrait, so it makes it much natural. And also, if you think about carom, in a way, it's like a bubble shooter game. You have to target a striker to hit a ball that is a puck. And if you look at all the bubble shooters, they're played in portrait, because it's much easier for you to play it with one hand and to hold your device. So this will be a huge advantage for the portability of the game, as something that you can play anywhere. Plus, the portrait kind of makes it a bit more natural for you as the user, that you're on the bottom of the screen and you see your opponent on the other side. And in a way, it's a bit like in a real carom board. If you have a carom board in front of you, you're in one of the parts. So we decided, okay, let's go for portrait, for the reasons that I told you guys. Then it was the part of setting up the physics. And this is something that we put a lot of effort in our games. And what we did, we created a build with tweakable physics, with several parameters that we could tweak, and we took a lot of time in interacting and maximizing to get it perfect. And two things that we wanted to do here. We wanted to have a physics that really allowed those cool bounce shots like the one you see on this image here, because we were looking at a lot on YouTube videos, and we have people from India in our studio that really told us, oh, this part is really nice, and the satisfaction that you get when you do this bounce and you put a puck on the hole, it's really, really good. So we tweaked our physics to be easy to do these things. And another thing that we consider is that if you look at some of the carom games, they're very, very fast. And of course, we want to replicate at maximum the real experience of carom, but we were also worried that if it's too fast, then it will be harder for people to understand the game. So what we did is on the real physics that we tried to replicate on our engine, we put it a bit slower so that people could understand better the movements that are happening in the game. Because that's really important. You get to see the beauty of that shot or of your opponent. And this was it. This is what we decided for the physics. We really interacted a lot. We wanted the bouncy shots, and then we put it a bit slower, just a bit, it's not a lot, so that people really understand what's happening on the game. The next thing, and I think this was a key point, is, as you guys know, on carom you can move the striker on the baseline, and here we had the challenge. On one hand, if we put it the possibility of moving the striker on the bar on the board itself, that would be in a way more intuitive because that's how we do it in real carom. But it has the problem that if you wanted to make certain shots, for example, if you want to make a shot to the left or to the right, you will be moving also the striker. So there's a conflict of movements that you might want to do. And the idea that we came to overcome this was, okay, let's perhaps create a navigation bar on the bottom outside the board where users can really control the striker with more precision without interfering with another movement that is actually launching the striker. And this was something that took us some time to do, and we tried. But then we saw this and, okay, this really seems good, and we went for it. And actually, I think it makes a huge difference on the game. And actually, see now, it's really nice when you make this in other games also replicated, because it's kind of a really nice touch to the game that makes it really easier. Perhaps we should have trademarked this, but it's really, really good. So we did this navigation bar. In a way, it was good that we did it in portrait. It makes it also easier because you have your finger to launch the striker, but you just move it a bit to the bottom to move the striker. And we implemented the bar at the bottom outside the board. The other thing on this process that we thought a lot was the controls. And here we had several options. One was we had the first option that was a control without the guideline. And that kind of it really pushes you on your skill, but it also makes the game too hard. And let's think of it. We want something that is accessible to everyone, and it feels good. For example, picking up on 8-ball pool. On 8-ball pool on the mobile device, everyone can pool. It makes it look like easy, but on a real pool table, it's much harder than what it seems. And the same is here in carom. On mobile, everyone can play it. But on the real board, it's not that easy. And we wanted to make it easy for people to onboard so that they also feel good in playing. It's really important that you can make these shots in a fairly easy way while still keeping the skill. But we wanted to replicate this. So on the controls without the guideline, we say, okay, skill is very strong, but it makes it a bit harder to play, which can really make it frustrating. So we tried another version that was the controls with the guideline, that even add deflection once it hits the wall or a puck. So this will really give you a lot of precision, which is good. This is more or less what we already have on 8-ball pool. And we tried it a bit, but then we started seeing, if you compare with 8-ball pool, the board is bigger. Here we just have this small square, and this type of guideline will make the game also too easy, which could take out a bit of the fun of the game. So we decided, well, perhaps let's not go for this direction. And then what we created was kind of an hybrid between both. So you have without the guideline, but it has these small dots that don't show any deflection. They just go straight ahead. But this already helps you a bit better to aim to where you want to aim, and still keeps a bit of the skill of the game. So we went for these hybrid controls. which in fact they're similar to the ones that we have in Soccer Stars. We had different visuals, but then we decided, okay, we know that this works on Soccer Stars and it's good, so let's do something similar here. And this was the option that we decided to go. And yeah, I think it's overall it was also a very good decision, because it still allows you to play, but it's in an easy way, but it also gives the room for some skill, which is something that in this type of skill-based game, multiplayer, it's really, really important. So we went for the hybrid controls. Then we had another thing. So in Carom, we have two game modes. We have the classic Carom with the rules of Carom, with the red piece in the center. We simplified some of them, but we have it, and we have Disc Pool, which is basically the same game mode, but without the red piece. That has some rules that might not be that easy to people to understand, at least on the first experience. And we did not want to put all of this information on the tutorial. So we were a bit in not knowing, okay, which one should we start with? Classic Chrome perhaps would make a bit more sense, since our target, it's mostly India, and they already are familiar with this, and this is what they're expecting. But then we had Disc Pool, which would make the sessions a bit shorter at start and less complex. And despite our target audience being India, we also wanted to make it accessible to the rest of the world so that people also engage with it. In the end, this was kind of a bit of a decision. Some of them, the previous ones, were a bit more, okay, this is really the right path. Here we decided, okay, let's go for Disc Pool. Despite India being our target audience, the sessions will be shorter, it's simpler, so it's a very easy way for people to start with. And then we introduce Classic Carom as the other game mode later. So we went for Disc Pool. We even A/B tested this later while we already had the game live, and it actually did not make such a huge difference starting with one game mode or the other. So we went for Disc Pool because it allowed a bit more an easier onboarding, even with people that don't know very well the rules of Carom. So we're almost ready. Well, there was a lot of things happening also. I also got married in this process. I went out for like 3 weeks off, but we already had defined most of these things. So I took some rest, and when I came back, we already had progressed more. But one thing that was still for us to decide was the name of the game. And we had several options. Carom Stars, Carom Royal, Disc Pool, Carom Clash, Carom King. What we did is we tested some of these games. We did some surveys. We did some tests on stores with just to see which name people interacted more. And from these tests, 2 came out. Just to give a bit of context, one of the names was Disc Pool. And why did we create this name? Because outside India and some of the surrounding countries, people don't know what's Carom. If you tell them Carom, they don't have an idea. So we decided, okay, Disc Pool, if we have this name for audiences in America or Europe, it might be more intuitive for them to know what the game is just by looking at it, by reading the name. So that's why we have this name, Disc Pool. So we tested all of them, and what we had was that Disc Pool performed better in the West, while Carom Pool performed better in India. And we were, oh, okay, so what should we do? Should we go for the target audience? Should we also, which is India, or should we also have it something that is intuitive for the rest of the world? So we were again in this challenge. In the end, what we decided to do is we had 2 names on the store, one for the Indian store and one for outside India, which would be Disc Pool. And overall, the game is still called Carom Disc Pool, but on the store names, it was a bit different. And we did this because we still wanted to try to attract a bit of the Western market. After a while, after some launch, what we did was we just decided to put one name only, because it's also easier in terms of marketing. When we do promotions on the stores or even on the game, we only have one logo. But in the beginning, this was the approach. And yeah, after this, we launched the game. Initially soft launched in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. because it's also famous there, carom, and it has some similarities with the Indian market. And we decided to launch in India in December. And the reaction was really good. Definitely, we started getting a lot of users organically, which was really good. Because I also think there were already a few carom games out there, but perhaps this was the first one that was really multiplayer and replicated some of the physics with a really top view that I think it was an opportunity that could yet to be explored well in the market. We were aiming 1 million daily active users at start, but after a while we passed this expectation. As you can see, around February, we were already over 1 million daily active users. The game continues growing. It has much more than that nowadays. And we were initially planning to launch the game in India, in the rest of the world, in December. But then, since it was going so well, we decided to wait a bit more to launch it globally. And we only did that in April because we wanted to add a few more things in terms of monetization. To give you an idea, we made this game until we launched it to India in around 4 months, which was something very, very fast, where the team was mostly focused on this core experience. And the fact that we took advantage of our engine in Soccer Stars also allowed us to do the game faster. So we did it very fast. We decided, okay, let's wait a bit more and improve a bit the monetization of the game so that when we put it global in the rest of the world, it is even more successful. We added the mini game and a few other things. And as you see here a bit, that launch happened a bit later in April. It's not even here, but at that time we were already so big. It had an impact, but comparing to what we already had in terms of users, it was a jump, but it was already so big, the game, that it was not so visible. And then the game continued growing, especially in India and some of the surrounding countries. After that, this global launch later, carom continues, and it's a very successful game for us, so we continue improving it. We were very amazed with the reaction from people, from our users. We enjoy a lot playing the game. It's really interesting that it's not so well known in the rest of the world. While it's such an awesome game, the sessions are fast, it's really simple, it involves this skill. And we decided to continue improving the game. And these are some of the features that we decided to implement. We decided to have this golden shot that was a great improvement in terms of revenue. The season pass, which is also something very interesting that you already know. And on the season pass, we really tried to put it more oriented to our audience. For example, this is the season of lights based on Diwali. We looked at some of the avatars or the emojis that we give more related to that. So we always try to look at our audiences as the theme for the season pass. And another thing that we also added was the freestyle mode, which is a mode where you score pieces, but you get a score point in terms of points, which is also a variation of carom. And we saw that it existed, so we decided to put it to engage even more with our audience. And the reaction was also very good. This mode also allows faster sessions, which is also something important for us. And yeah, this is it. I hope you enjoyed a bit the story of the game. We're really happy that you guys like this game, and we're really proud of continuing doing this game. And overall, it's one of the games I personally feel more proud of because I was able to participate on it from day zero, and I'm still able to see it growing and to continue improving. It's a game that we expect in the next years to continue improving and having an awesome relationship with our audience. And yeah, that's it from my side.
Brilliant. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Like I said, Andrew, I mean, we are big fans of Carom Pool. We really enjoy playing it. And you guys have solved some of the, some of the user experience problems with the bar on the bottom of the carom board. And it was so amazing. And we really love what you guys have been doing. And I guess across India too, people do like what you guys are doing. And so there were a few questions coming in. If I one of the question is that you guys introduced the easy mode, right? I mean, which was little unique. I mean, very very different than the traditional game. And and
This
then
pool mode, you mean?
yeah, this poll mode, right? I mean, and did you have this fear that, hey, this might not take off, right? In the sense that's very new to the Indian population, and how did you guys plan that?
So it's always a risk, and with games we never know exactly what's going to happen. But we had the two versions. We had the classic Carom and we had Disc Pool. Both of them were visible in the game, and the only thing was which match should the user start with. So we took the chance for what I explained to go with the easy version, which is Disc Pool. But even later on the next match, you could already play Carom, the classic Carom. Once again, we did a soft launch. We saw the reaction good. Perhaps if the reaction was not that good, we would have changed. Later, we still A/B tested this, and didn't seem to be a big difference. From experience, many times we don't need to follow exactly the traditional rules of every game. It's good that we make some of these adaptations to make the game a bit faster. And as long as the core experience of the game is there, people like it. Of course, if needed, we adapt. But we see this with many games. Even when Soccer Stars, when we did it, we also simplified a few things. So normally people like this simplicity, but of course we adapt along the way. But since the reviews here were good, we were okay.
Yeah, I mean that was a little surprising for us, so that I get it. There was this another question. I guess it was primarily focusing, hey, you built a game which was very much for the Indian audiences. Do you see that same excitement levels on the western part of the world? I mean, it would be unfair to ask about your revenue share, but in terms of like audiences, do you see an excitement, the retention wise, do you still see or equal to what you see in the Indian subcontinent?
Our biggest audience is India. More than 75% of our users are in India. What we do see is in other countries, the retention and engagement is also good, but we don't get as many downloads, not even close. And many times what we see, for example, if you go to the leaderboard in Portugal, I'm in Portugal, the country leaderboard of Portugal, and you look at the top players, many of them from their name they actually look they're from India or from Arabic countries. So definitely people that already have Carom as something that they played in their childhood dreams. So what we do see is the retention values are good outside India and surrounding countries. But we don't get as many downloads because it's not famous there. And many times looking at the users that we have there, looking at the leaderboards, we definitely see that it's people that probably have origins from the countries where Carom is big. So it's very interesting. You see all these names. Okay, this guy for sure is either, in the case of Portugal, someone from India living in Portugal, or his family's from India or from Pakistan or Sri Lanka. So it's definitely something that we see. Our biggest audience is yes, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Arabic countries.
Brilliant. Related question. Uh, I guess Shivam is trying to ask: did you consider any cultural differences? That you accounted for while launching the game in India. Was there a different APK for India, and was there a different APK for the West? Or
No, no.
rather, APK would be a wrong way of asking it, but I would say that did you guys have a localized content based where the user is actually launching the game?
Well, that's a good point. First, we had the name that was different in India and in the Western markets, but still on the same APK, because sustaining two APKs or binaries, it's a bit complex, so we decided to keep it simple. In the end, we started putting Carom Pool as in both audiences. Apart from that, the only thing that we also do is the tier names. The tiers are different depending on certain countries. For example, some of the tiers, the cities where you play, the tables. Like you can play in New York, Lahore, Dubai, whatever. Sometimes it adapts depending on the country where you're at. So for example, in Pakistan, some of the cities that appear there are cities from Pakistan. In India, cities from India, and we adapt that a bit. We did this because we wanted to engage a bit more with the audience on specific countries. In terms of the season pass, we focus more on, we don't mix different content depending on the country. We focus more on our target audience. Perhaps if we have a big split of audiences, it would justify that, but we try to keep it either generic or something that fits our core audience.
Brilliant. I think that answered that question. I'll take this one question. Saurav was asking whether basically Bangladesh was the test pool or test market for for the India market, or I mean, is that how that is how you actually tried it? And the second question was, I'm not sure if you would be comfortable answering that, but what was the monetization percentage when you compare to India and rest of the world? We agree. We know that the larger user base is from India, but do you also see monetization-wise? So is that something you would be able to answer?
Yeah. So to the question of Bangladesh, yes, we just look at markets that are similar to India, and even in terms of where Carom is relevant. So we decided to go for these three: Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan. That's the only thing. We knew that Carom is significant there. Some of the Carom games that existed and still exist were big there. Okay, let's try it out. That was the only thing. Perhaps there could be other rationale, but that was it. In terms of revenue, so India is our biggest audience, and one of the biggest proportion of the way the game monetizes is through ads. And due to the volume of the user base from India, of course, the revenue from India in terms of ads, it's very big, bigger than the rest. What we do see is that in terms of in-app monetization, countries that are not India monetize also very, very well, but that's normal in every game. I would say that despite being so small in terms of user base, other countries that are not India, for example, if you look at US and some countries in Europe, they still represent a significant proportion of the in-app revenue in terms of the game. I would say that something like they might be 3% of the user base. This is it's not the exact number, but they represent like 30% of the in-app revenue in a way, just from those 1-2%.
Brilliant. One last question. I would say that we are a big fan of the Golden Shot. I mean, a lot of us are like the Golden Shot. I think I spent a lot of money on that. And how did that happen? I mean, how did you guys manage to do that? Yeah, go on.
It's definitely we wanted something like a mini game that is fast and that is in a way related to the game. And we have seen the experience in some of our other games. I think we already had a similar feature in our game Golf Battle with very good results, perhaps even on 8-Ball Pool. So we decided, okay, let's replicate something on this because it's definitely a very easy fit. It makes total sense in Carom. And already on the market of mobile games, there were already some games that were trying something similar. So we're always looking at what others are doing and others are looking at us. So we kind of took that approach and capitalized it on it to make something fun for the game that also is good in terms of monetization.
Great. Andrew, thank you so much for taking time and we really enjoyed this, and I'm sure the audiences who were part of this also enjoyed it, and we had like over 200 people attending, and so that's quite exciting. And before I end, I would like also quickly thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsor Unreal, gold sponsor AWS, MPL, Glance, Jungli Games, and we had the legacy silver sponsor GameShun, Lakshya, Yestom, bronze sponsor Quali, Gameon, and Hyper Casual Track sponsors Sunday, and IP Connect sponsor Succeed Innovation. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck with your game, and hopefully next time you'll be in here in India. So
yeah, I hope so. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go backstage. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.